And then my friend asked me the question. She said, "So what made the difference? Did she ever change? Did she ever change?" And my response to her shocked even me.
Welcome to the Love Your Brain podcast, the podcast designed for everyday people who are ready to hop off the negative thought hamster wheel and enjoy a less hostile environment in their own brains. Our brains are where we live our entire lives, and I'm on a mission to help people see that they have everything they need to make it a happier place to be. So join us for this episode of the Love Your Brain podcast. Let's get started.
All right, welcome to this week's episode. I will tell you that this episode might be a little bit shorter than normal. It's kind of been a last minute thing I've been trying to put together, and maybe you can tell a little bit, but I am getting over being sick. So luckily I'm feeling close to 100%. My voice is slowly starting to feel normal. So I wanted to at least pop on here, put on an episode this week, because there is something near and dear to my heart that I do want to share with you all this week. And I'm excited about it. So let's get down to it. One of the most discouraging thoughts we can get stuck on is the thought that someone will never change. And don't we all have that thought sometimes? We get so frustrated, almost like banging our head on a wall, that this person in our life is just never going to change. They're always going to be this way, and it's always going to frustrate us. It's such a dead end, right? Like it conjures up so much frustration. Like you just keep hitting a brick wall, like it's never going to change. And it's so much of what I like to call a hope stealer. It basically leads you to think that there's nothing that can be done. And there are a lot of thoughts that we have like that just steal your hope. But the truth is, with many of these hope stealers, they're not actually factual. And that's very much the case with this one that we're talking about today, right? The thought that someone will never change. Well, that's definitely not true because we're all changing always, right? But maybe they're not changing in the ways that you want. Or maybe they're not changing on the timeline you want. We could really get into the woo-woo here, but the truth is the harder that you force something, the less likely it will happen. That's how the universe stays in balance. You try and force it, it's going to put up a brick wall to not let that happen. So the same goes with people. The harder you push them, the harder and harder you try to force them into something, the harder they're going to push back. That's just how things work. And so this kind of mental battle that we have when we're thinking someone's never going to change and we really want them to change, it's just not a helpful place to be. And the truth is, even if you could strong arm someone into changing the way you want them to change, I mean, I just don't know that we would even want that, right? Like it's typically just not ideal. It's not great when like humans get into something and we strong arm something to like look exactly the way that we want in our timeline. Like that's just not the beauty of life. So, in today's episode, we are going to do what we do best, and we're going to hop off that negative thought hamster wheel of ruminating on the thought they will never change and take back our power, make our brains a happier place to be. And again, this is one that truly is near and dear to my heart, and you'll find out why here in a second. So recently, I was having a very sweet conversation with one of my friends, and we were both kind of mutually venting a little bit about our generation. And we are in an age bracket where we're basically sandwiched between two generations, where we have kids that are grown or kind of not totally grown yet, and maybe their frontal lobes aren't fully developed yet. And then the other side of things, we also have our parents who are unfortunately deteriorating, needing more and more from us, and we're kind of having to care for two generations going in almost opposing directions, right? Like our kids are needing a little bit less, but our parents are needing more. It's a really challenging place to be. But what's funny is when you look at like the three different generations that are like all interacting in this space here, is they're all so dramatically different. And each one thinks they know what is best. They all think they're right. And I mean, I'll put myself in that category too. I think I know what's best. Um, So it is such a challenging situation to be in. We have three different generations of people all thinking that they know what's best and all competing, and it's so frustrating because everyone has their own agenda. But recently when I was having this talk with my friend, we were talking about our really, really difficult challenges we've had with our parents. And you know how it is. Like you grow up your whole life and honestly there's probably things that will always frustrate you about your parents, right? But it those things really become so apparent and so frustrating when you're kind of having to tackle big things, you know? Maybe it's their health, maybe it's where they're going to live long term, maybe there's certain things that are happening and you have to make this big decisions about their, end of life plan. There's just so much going on at that stage of life. And as we were talking, I shared with my friend a little bit about my own relationship with my mom. Now, for me, our relationship has been very tumultuous, and I've talked about this in previous podcasts. Um, we've had a very tumultuous relationship over the years. She struggled with addiction, mental health, um, from when I was very little, and it's really created a lot of challenges for us through various stages of life. And I told my friend how so many years have been really challenging because I'd be trying to help manage the best plan for her well being while also respecting her own agency and her own choices about what she thinks is best for her, all the while trying to raise kids and managing all those crazy challenges as well. And those things are just all big things to handle. And I was really sharing with her how my mom used to be such a stressor for me. It just really would take me out. It would take out my nervous system. I just could not handle it. And anytime something would come up that I didn't know how to handle in regards to my mom, it really did wipe me out and I wasn't good for anything else because it was just so overwhelming for me. And at the end of this conversation with my friend, I was able to share with her something really cool. And I was able to share with her how different things are today for my mom and I, how things are now compared to then. And I was able to share with my friend how I'm honestly completely obsessed with who my mom is today. I absolutely adore spending time with her. I love that she allows me to be a part of processes when she's trying to, get things taken care of with her future plans. And it really is so different today than it was, say, even 10 years ago. And then my friend asked me the question. She said, "So what made the difference? Did she ever change? Did she ever change?" And my response to her shocked even me. The words left my mouth before I could even think about them. And I said, "No, I changed." I could have cried when I heard myself say that. The truth is, I never set out to change specifically so that I could love my mom better or accommodate her better, although that would have been a very noble quest. For me, I was just working on me so I could handle the stress better, learn how to let it all get to me less. I was working on addressing my trauma, investing time in my relationship with myself, and really working on healing the wounds that I had attributed to her, but who even knows if that was the case. And then recently, on a trip to visit her, I truly had a moment where I just sat there and realized I felt completely different about my mom than I ever had before. I had so much love and compassion for her. And my nervous system just responds to her differently now. It's not stressed. I'm not frustrated. There's no anger. There's no resentment. There's just complete, overwhelming love for her. And it makes sense, right? We can only control ourselves. We can't control anyone outside of ourselves. So, with that in mind, if there is something really stressing us out that is outside of ourselves, in my case, it was my mom, the best thing I could do in that situation was to adjust myself, the only thing that is actually in my control. So, if we go back to that phrase, they will never change. And we swapped that thought out for they may never change, but I will. Doesn't that feel empowering? It's just something to consider if you've struggled with that thought. It really does change it so it puts you in the driver's seat. And there's activeness there. It's not a dead end anymore. You're in control of where things go and how you change. Now, I don't want you to get the wrong idea here and think that what you need to do is change who you are just to be more acceptable to those in your life. That's not it at all. It's about building your capacities, gaining tools for managing stress, and strengthening your relationship with yourself. Because the truth is, when we're getting upset with people around us, a lot of the root cause of that, of that frustration, is actually not liking who we are in that situation and how we're feeling and how we're responding when we're with that person. We don't like what we're seeing in ourselves. It's not really the other person, it's what they're pulling out of us that irritates us. And so, by working on strengthening our relationship with ourselves, helping to gain tools for managing stress, you now show up different in those situations. You show up as someone who can love themselves and others and love them better. You can manage challenging situations better. And for me, learning to love myself better, oh my word, it has changed how I love other people. And the biggest change has probably been in my relationship with my mom. But we don't need to turn this into like a Taylor Swift song here. I'm the problem, it's me. Um, no, what I want you to focus on here is simply the idea that even though we may have some people in our lives that feel like they might not change their behaviors in the way that we want or when we want, that's okay. They don't have to change for things to improve because we can focus on what we can control, and that's ourselves, our relationship with ourselves, and our ability to manage our stress when we're exposed to challenging individuals. And how empowering is that? I want you to think about if you loved yourself in a radical way, how might that impact your relationship with the people around you? Would it look any different? I don't know. It's just exciting to think about. All right. Have a great week, guys.
I hope you found something helpful here today on the Love Your Brain podcast. Maybe a laugh or a feeling of validation, or maybe just a few moments to have company while you do your laundry. Whatever you take from it, I hope you enjoyed your time and leave feeling empowered to be more you every day. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss out on the next episode, and leave a review. I'd love to hear what you think. Have a great one.